can you make sure that, it's being recorded by the town or being recorded so that I can get the transcripts back through?
Yeah, I will have to find a way to do that. So all I can do is record it to my computer or to my iCloud account because I don't have access to the town, wherever it would normally go to the town. We need to get Neil to do that on the front end next time.
Yeah, usually it's Neil that I contact to get the transcript really quick.
Okay,
Thank you.
I will do my best.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Norm. Okay, are there any comments or questions or clarifications on the minutes from our October 14th, 2020 meeting? I'll just ask you to wave or raise your hand in the raise hand function. Norm.
So the superintendent search for the part where I mentioned for marketing expense is $3,400, not $34,000. That was on page 3,100. I'm sorry, $3,100, not $31,000. So that's on page 5. Mr. Goupel explained that the projected cost of the search is $15,000, and there will be an additional cost for marketing expense, which could be $31,000. The record should say $3,100.
Okay, thank you, Norm. Tammy, you got that?
And the last one was Steve had gave me an incorrect number. Well, just through discussion, which is okay. That for technology reasons, the actual bond rate proposed to the town was 115, not 104. So when we had the discussion in the last meeting, I had said 104, but for the record, it was actually 115. So it was a better savings of 30 cents or so. Overall 80.
Okay, so that's not a change to the minutes because the minutes accurately captured it. You're just saying that the information was inaccurate. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just making that. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything further?
To be
Norm, or are you all set? Anything? Okay. Anybody else have comments or clarifications on the minutes?
to be clear, can I ask a question?
Of course, Tammy.
Okay, so on page 5, Norm Goupel explained that the projected cost for the search was $15,000, and there would be an additional cost for marketing expenses that would cost $3,100, not $31,000. So that sentence would just be changed, Norm?
Yeah. So there would be an additional
Marketing.
There could be an additional cost of a marketing expense, which could be $3,100. So
Okay.
that's,
Okay, 31, not 31,000. Oh, so 3,001. Yep.
yeah.
Drop to
Perfect.
0.
Okay,
Thank
making
you.
sure.
Thank you, guys.
Okay,
Great.
going on mute.
Anything further? Okay, I'm going to do a quick roll call vote. Norm?
Norm Goupel is a yes.
Janet?
Janet Kozaniak is a yes.
Don?
Don Houston's a yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Virginia?
Abstain, I was not here.
Thomas?
Thomas Lapoma is a yes.
Steve?
Steve Reddy, yes.
Rich?
I will abstain.
Okay, and Mark Van Kell is a yes. Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, next up, we're going to revisit the calendar for the Budget Committee and the Town and School District annual meetings. You'll recall that our last meeting, we got a draft calendar from Neil. Since that time, the town and the school district have had some, the select board and the school board have convened together. The school board has also talked about their schedule and their needs. And so, Ken, would you like to start? Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Norm and I were tasked by our respective boards to look into, I'll say that basically the subject of when we should hold the elections for town and school officers, as well as when to hold the business sessions for the respective boards. And to date, we've had one Zoom meeting, including Sarah, Neil, Steve Chamberlain. We've received input from James. And now we're awaiting hopefully some clarification from the municipal association on whether or not, let's say, March 9th is the hard date when at least officers have to be elected or not. I'd say so at this point in time, as far as the budget committee portion of the schedule is concerned, I anticipate there's no change. One thing that we are certainly leaning towards is that there would be separate elections for the school and the town business portions of the meetings, but we certainly don't have any dates yet. As I said, we're waiting for more clarification on that. And we're assuming that the meetings will be Zoom, though, like last summer. And with that, Norm, did you want to add anything?
Nope. I think it's pretty clear. I think the most important thing for the calendar is the school board would like to be able to deliver its budget to the budget committee on January 13th. Unfortunately, we cannot do the first week in January due to we will not have accurate information for the budget committee. During my finance committee update, I can give you guys probably a little bit more information that I think would be helpful to your decision process. That would be quite clear. But I'm asking the budget committee to accept our recommendation of sticking with January 13th for the school board's presentation.
Great, thank you, Ken and Norm. Ken, may I just clarify, Jan, I'm gonna call on you in just a moment. So Ken, did you, if you did it, I just didn't, I missed it. The date that you plan to present the town's budget to the budget committee is?
That's unchanged from what Neil had provided.
Okay, do you have that date? I just want to reconfirm it. I can try to pull it up. But
Sure, if you give me a second.
Just because there are members of the public who are on the phone right now, or who are calling in. I'd love them to hear the date.
The December 9th.
December 9th, okay. Very good, thank you.
Coming up too soon.
Okay, and then January 13th for the school. Okay, Janet, and then others who have comments, just let me know.
I just would like to state I'm disappointed that we're down to this point and we're not going to be able to hear the school's budget earlier than the 13th. That was one of the big issues that was asked, if we could try to get it done earlier. So that's my only comment.
Thanks, Janet. Are there other comments or questions about our budget timeline and anything in terms of the dates of our meetings, the public meetings? Obviously dynamic in terms of the actual date and format of the formal school district and town meetings in March. Thomas.
Yeah, so to kind of echo what Janet was saying about having the school presentation like late in January, that seems like there's not really a lot of time to, I mean, if there's feedback or ideas that we have, doesn't seem like there's a lot of time after that to have any of those be absorbed into whatever would happen next. Is there a good way that we can help with issues before that time frame, or is it just kind of like we'll have to wait until then?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, I guess for
Okay.
Norm and Mark. I mean, I don't know. Again, if there's like another process, more for Mark, if there's like another way that we can be useful and effective on the budget side as opposed to the school side. But I mean, yeah, it's just kind of more open in the air.
So, I'm an open book, with you guys. Whatever I know, you're going to know regarding the budget. And I think, I need to give you guys a feel for where we are on the budgeting process and not bring it to you all here and throw it on your laps. I really look at, I was going to say it for the finance committee part, but, we're going through a whole different budget presentation and a whole new budget format that this budget committee has mentioned in the past that is much different than what you've used to see. And, Rob, myself, Michelle, and Steve, we've met almost every week to really kind of narrow down an appropriate format. It's just we have to wait for specific numbers to come in. It's hard to dissect it as a budget committee when you don't have fixed numbers, and that discussing numbers that aren't real is hard. I mean, we've tried to present you with only real numbers that have been confirmed. The school board's calendar is, we receive our budget on a presentation on December 3rd, then on the 10th, and then the 17th, and then we have another presentation on the 22nd or the January 7th. I don't know, the board hasn't seen any budget presentation where we could speed up the process and confirm an amount to the, it's an open discussion to have with them, but I'm reporting to you what the board has said to me to ask you guys for that date. If you're looking for type of collaboration in the process where we can help you out with that, I'm happy to bring that back to the board if the budget committee asks for that. I'm not sure if it's abnormal to do, but I don't know. But I do understand your concern.
And
Norm, I was just going to suggest that we're looking at your school board meetings on the budget on December 3, 10, and 17. Those are all open to the public, obviously, and you'd be taking public input there, I assume. So
Yeah.
that might be another way that, members of the budget committee could get an earlier education and feeling for the different issues.
And I also think, each presentation, Ken has its own thing, like we have expenses, and we have, the revised superintendent's budget, and then a bunch of other stuff in there. I think this budget committee is going to see a much different format that's going to be able to help them dissect our budget much better. And I strongly stand by that. We've really worked hard to bring something to this community so they can understand it. And that is a good avenue for them to be informed with public comment and understand what we're doing basically in real time, because we're going to be seeing it for the first time.
just to, so everyone's got the sort of time frame in mind. If we receive the school's budget on January 13th, or that's the initial presentation, the public hearing for the budget committee is scheduled for Wednesday, February 10th, which is 4 weeks later. So we have 4 weeks between when we receive the initial budget and the public hearing within which to have some back and forth with the school board if we have questions, concerns. I think my experience on the budget committee is it often has taken at least 2 meetings to get through the school budget. And I appreciate, Norm, it's really great to hear that the school, that the board is working with the administration on the format of the budget and to make it more, a little bit more accessible and user-friendly. That should help. And undoubtedly it will take some back and forth. So we will have a month from the date that we receive the initial budget, and we will work within that time frame. Because you've made it clear that you don't feel the board doesn't feel like it can deliver a responsible, well thought out fully informed budget until then.
That is correct.
Are there further questions or thoughts for Norm or Ken on the time frame, or on Thomas's question about how we might best work together? It just strikes me, Norm, that I've heard you talk now a couple of times about this, new, more user-friendly budget structure and format, and perhaps there's a way to give the budget committee a sneak peek at that, even when the budget isn't fully formed. It might just help us to get a sense of how the information is going to be conveyed, and perhaps there might be some feedback on the budget committee, questions or things that might make it even more accessible and useful to us. So that's just one thing that came to mind for me that perhaps could take place for the 10th of January.
And that is a great point, Mark. And we, in our last finance meeting, Steve kind of did a presentation on what the new format of, I guess you could say, line by line item for Harold Martin, for example. Unfortunately, there was no document that we wanted to give out that had not gone through Steve's, cuts and reductions or whatever he needed to do. But I will check with Steve tomorrow to see if that video is uploaded, and encourage the budget committee just to take a sneak peek of the presentation in there, which Rob and I have been working with. I'm comfortable that I don't see an issue that once we receive the budget in December, we'll be able to give you a sneak peek of what the budget format will be for our next meeting. I don't see there being an issue unless the board has or the finance committee, but there's a clear picture right now online that you guys can review and see.
Great, thank you. Thomas, did you have any further thoughts on that you wanted to share or explore?
No, I mean, that sounds great. I think more to Ken's point, I think it's definitely, I definitely plan on being as many school board meetings as possible, because I think that learning about the budget as soon as possible is going to be really helpful. But I think what I'm more wary about is, if there are concerns that like Mark, what you said, it takes like 2, maybe 3 minutes to get through it. So by the end of that, if there's concerns that the budget committee has, to then take that feedback and work it into a budget solution is really difficult, because there's like basically a week to do that. And so I think that's what I'm wary about. And I mean, if we don't have numbers until we have numbers in January, that's kind of what we have to live with. But if there's any big change or big problem that you see coming down the pipeline, the earlier that we can talk about it and try to come up with a solution is better. But I definitely get what you're saying on.
And like I said, I'm open to bring you guys everything that I can, so this is an ongoing conversation. When I came up on the budget committee, my goal was to communicate, changes in our budget, open dialogue on what's going on with any changes and where our money's going. So I can bring it back to the board saying, they really kind of want to be engaged in this process, that they can know more information. I'm happy to ask them about that. But, as of right now, December 3rd is our start date, and I'll know as much as you guys know on that date.
Okay, very good, thank you. And so I just want to maybe just to make sure we all got it. So our next meeting will be on December 9th, when the town will present their draft budget. I would also ask you to put a meeting on your calendar for December 16th, so that we can have a follow-up with the town. And that was on Neil's draft timeline as well. Ken, are you raising a hand about that? I'm just going by what Neil had put in his timeline. Yeah.
I'm looking at Neil's timeline, and December 2nd, the precincts will be presenting to the budget committee. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what
thank you, Ken. All right, so let me come back to that actually. So that's, okay, that actually wasn't really on my radar. And I wonder if we could ask the precincts to also present on the 9th, so we don't have to have 3 consecutive Wednesday meetings in December. So that's a question for you, Don, and for Thomas. Could we do your presentations on the 9th of December as well?
Yes.
The precinct presentations are pretty quick, so I don't think adding them to the town presentation.
Yeah, we probably can't. We were gonna start ours tomorrow. We don't meet again until after the 9th. So we should have the basis template up. We might not have the final numbers until the following month, but again, ours is really short and easy.
Right, and if we need to take up the precinct in, or the Hopkinton precinct in, later in December on the 16th or even in January, I'm sure that will be fine if we need to.
Yeah, I can plan on the
Don,
9th, and if I have updates, then I can do them on the
okay. And how about you, Don, for Kentucky?
Yeah, we're in the same situation. I've called a meeting for tomorrow also to develop the budget, and hopefully that'll be ready to present on schedule here on our next meeting. Again,
Okay,
I anticipate no basic changes or anything in the budget. There's no surprises, so it should be pretty much the same as last year.
I will communicate to Neil then that we're not going to meet on December 2nd. We're going to plan to do the town and the precincts on the 9th, and we can also have the fallback on the 16th for the precincts if that's needed for either precinct. Then I think our next meeting in January will be January 13th, so we won't meet on the 6th unless something comes up. I'd suggest we need to, but we'll plan on January 13th for the school, and I would probably keep the 20th and 27th on your calendars as well. I'm sure we'll need at least 2 weeks with the school, the 13th and the 20th, and we have the 27th and February 3rd as needed, if and as needed, and then February 10th is the public hearing. Just to have the full calendar, I will follow up with Neil about removing the January 6th and the December 2nd dates from our calendar. Let me just pause. I know we just covered a lot. Is that everyone okay and clear? Okay. I'm seeing some nods, and I'm not seeing any shaking heads or hands raised. So
No, we're good.
we're okay. Okay. Very good. So I'm going to close this agenda item and then move to Ken, who's going to give a town financials update.
Okay. I was going to actually start with a couple of general updates. The first is we are planning to refinance our existing road bond and the fire station bond at the same time as we go out for the new road bond. And we anticipate going through the municipal bond bank. And if the rate is 1.5%, and it may well be less than that, we're viewing that as resulting in about a $230,000 savings in interest costs over the life of the existing bonds. Okay. Second item is where the town has started developing our budget. The initial numbers we're looking at would result in a 16% increase in the town portion of the tax rate. That's just the starting point. Don't panic. And within that, because of the state revenue issues, we're assuming we're going to be getting $140,000 less from the state next year, whether it's room and meals, highway funds, or the municipal increase that we received last year. Other drivers relate to the increase in state retirement funds. Okay, and just like with the school, you're most welcome to come into the Monday night meetings we're having on the budget. It'll be continuing at 5:30 next Monday night. If you've been wondering what's happening with the solar array at the transfer station, and that was a big headline in the Monitor the other day, Neil, Stephen Whitley, and I and our Webster counterparts had met with the representatives of the company, and they're planning a much larger array now than original, but everything other than what's on the transfer station property will be in Webster. As far as Hopkinton is concerned, we're anticipating getting the same amount of revenues from it as we had presented at town meeting. And where originally there was the thought that all of the electrons would be going through the transfer station to the grid, now it will be going through Webster. And I tentatively next Monday night, the company will be making a presentation to the select board in case anyone's interested. The next item.
Big project.
Oh, it's potentially huge and a wonderful project. I wish more of it was coming into Hopkinton for tax purposes, but we're thinking we'll still be, once it's up and running, getting maybe 150,000 a year tax benefit out of it. The next item,
Ken,
which
if
is,
I may interrupt for just a minute. I just want to let everyone know I'm muting everybody who's not speaking just to minimize the background noise. So when you get ready to speak, just unmute yourself. Thank you, Jonathan. Good suggestion.
did anybody want to ask any questions on the couple of items I've already hit? Okay, I'll move on. This isn't a budget item, but just for your information, the select board had another meeting with regards to a mask ordinance, and my expectation is within a number of weeks we'll probably have one. But we've certainly been receiving comments pro and con from a lot of people in town and business owners. Okay, some of the homework assignments I had from the last meeting was, I had a question from Janet with regards to the cost to the town of our portion of the work done for the new road into the back of the middle high school. And the town portion of the cost was $22,772 plus our employees' labor. Okay, and from Jonathan had asked about if we could provide a greater breakdown of the account that included planning and building fees and ambulance fees and police and fire fees. And if you would notice on the revenue summary page, those accounts are all now broken out. And thank you for that suggestion, Jonathan. I think it makes a lot of sense. And where we've had questions about what the net cost to Hopkinton taxpayers are for ambulance service and also for the transfer station. Just looking in terms of the prospective budget for 2021, the net cost to Hopkinton taxpayers for the ambulance would be about $417,000. Now, whether or not that number changes as we go through the budget process, but that'll give you a ballpark idea of what it costs. And as far as the transfer station, again, the net cost to Hopkinton property taxpayers is around $336,000. Okay. Now, unless there are any questions, I'll just go into the actuals through the end of October. Thomas?
Yeah, sorry. For the transfer station, the 336, does that include is that after green bags? Is that the operating costs, or is that post green bag revenue?
It's after green bag revenue.
Yeah.
100% of the revenue from that is credited to Hopkinton. None of that goes to Webster's benefit.
Right. Okay.
Janet? You're muted.
Do we have a labor cost on what the town paid for labor at up at the new road?
No, we do not. We don't account for labor by projects.
Well, would you please do that? Because I asked for, and what I would like is a full picture as to what it cost the town and what it cost for the school.
Well, Norm should be able to provide, or may be able to provide the school.
I understand that.
Okay, what you're asking for is then for every town employee to track their hours? And
No,
I
what
think
I'm
that's,
asking you, you're making a big mountain out of a molehill. I don't know how many weeks the town worked on that project up there, and they should be able to easily figure out how many days they worked up there, how many people, what the cost was for the employees, so that we can add it on to the other figure.
okay, and what I'm saying is I can ask, but it's not as though our town crew was all just working there straight. They would have been doing other projects at the same time. So you're going to have to be asking each individual, okay, how many hours did you spend on that project? And that's where I'm afraid you're starting to build up administrative costs.
Can I ask, just to interject for a second, Janet, because I have heard you ask that too. Maybe it would be helpful to explain what you hope to do with it, or how that information will be helpful to you in the budget
I just want to
committee.
see what that project cost, period, the total, and how much it costs the town and how much it costs the school.
Okay, so Ken, I mean, I think if you could just communicate that request and you know, let's see what Neil has to say, or whoever it would be from the town's public works department, if they feel like they can be responsive to that request at a reasonable amount of time on their part. You know, I'm super sensitive right now about placing additional demands on overworked town employees. And so, but let's ask them. And if they feel like they can do it with a reasonable amount of time and effort, great. And if they feel like it's onerous, then they can let us know and you can communicate that back to us. Is that okay?
Mark, and I'm not asking for right down to the last minute on employees. You know, a ballpark would be fine.
Hey,
Right, and I think that, but I also think, Janet, I understand that, and if it's something they're going to put into the public record, I also understand that there may be a sensitivity about giving you, you know, just a guesstimate, and so we should just, let's see what they have to say if they feel like they can do this with a reasonable amount of effort and a reasonable estimate, not down to the precise dollar.
Okay, I'll make a further inquiry on that.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay, should I move on to the actuals for 10 months to date?
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Okay, what you were provided with this time was the full revenue and expense report that was actually providing by line item, just so you had a feeling for what the select board receives on a monthly basis. But I'll just talk about the revenue and expense summary pages, which is what you normally receive. So looking at revenues, again, we're 10 months into our year. The items that don't look quite in line are pilot payment in lieu of taxes, and that again is St. Methodius, and Neil is working with them to get the payments. Motor vehicle permits are running slightly above, which is great. And room and meals tax, flood control are just timing. They're money that come from the state, and the state quite often pays us late in the year. So we're not concerned about that. Similarly, transfer station income is running on the low side, and that again it's payments, but it would be payments, say, from Webster. Okay.
And so you would, just on that front, you expect that the transfer revenue, station revenue, will ultimately be on budget or close to budget?
Let's say close to budget.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's account 3359 other from state that's well in excess of budget, and that was basically where the COVID-related revenues were accounted for. So that covers the revenue summary side. Are there any questions on that? Okay, and then I'll turn to the expense side.
Hey, Ken, Jonathan has a question. Just a second.
Sorry.
Quick question. Can you give us some sense as to where that money, the 3359, like, I mean, not all of it, just sort of generally, like, where did that go? That other from state, the CARES Act money.
It went to police and first responders stipends. It went for more PPE. Some went to elections.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, on the expense side, and actually following up on what Jonathan just asked about on the expense side under emergency management, account 4290, that 88,000 was stipends relating to COVID going to, I believe it was just to first responders per, let's say, state guidance. Beyond that, cemeteries is running high, but they reimburse us, so they stay within budget. They reimburse us out of their own reserve funds. Beyond that, at this point, I don't feel that there were any surprises on the expense side. We hope that our highway crews don't have to go out and salt and sand or plow much, because that's always an expense that you just don't have any control over. Okay. Again, with that, I'll stop and ask for any questions. Okay, well, thank you all. I wish I could say goodbye.
Hey, now, what are you talking about?
We had a 5.5-hour select board meeting Monday night, and I'm still recovering from that.
Okay, well, I promise you ours will not be that long. Thank you, Ken, very much. Appreciate that. Okay, we are going to turn it over to Norm, who's first going to start with some general updates on the school district, and then we'll transition into the financials. Take it away, Norm.
Thanks, Mark. And Ken, I just want to say thank you to you, the select board, for working through that ordinance, possibly moving forward and keeping our town safe. Thank you very much. It feels like it's been a while since I've seen you guys, and we're just, I want to say thank you to the school board, Steve Chamberlain, Michelle Clark, all our teachers from top, custodians, and everyone, and really having this school year start off, I think, pretty good. And I'm happy to say it's been an interesting year for the board. It's been an interesting year for everyone, and a lot of appreciation to our students who are really learning in a unique way, and especially to our parents who are really want to see their kids succeed. As a parent, as a school board, and as a parent, we all have different opinions, and just a lot of appreciation to our teachers who are working in a different environment. So much appreciation to them. So before I begin, I appreciate the budget committee giving me an opportunity to answer your questions that you asked in the last meeting, because I don't know all the answers. I always appreciate this time to come back and answer them for you. And the first question from the last meeting was Janet's question about how much did the district pay for George Park, and the number that I received from Steve Chamberlain was about $24,000 is what he gave to me. Janet, did you need any additional information from me on that, or is that that's good? Okay. The other question was from Jonathan. He had asked about the additional boiler at Harold Martin. Steve did some work on that, and each school has 2 boilers. The boiler in the discussed minutes that Jonathan asked about is an older boiler that was installed in 1988. I had hair back then, which is in line for a replacement. So that's the answer to your question, Jonathan. That each school has 2 boilers. And one of your other questions, Mark, in the meeting was when was the last time we actually looked at a study for alternative fuels, and that was back in 2010 when we put in a propane boiler. Steve had mentioned to me that possibly it's time to look at a new study for that. So I just wanted to get those questions answered for you guys from the last meeting. If I missed any of them, hunt me down. Gladly will get you the answers.
Okay, Norm, thank you for that. And I just want to say that much has changed since 2010 around energy sources.
Yep.
So it does feel timely. That's great, and I hope the school board will commit to a thorough assessment before any further upgrades or replacements are done.
Yep, I agree. And I will bring that feedback back to the board. Yep.
Great.
So I'm going to go through a couple updates that's happened. We probably get more information than budget that I sent over on the first thing is the superintendent search. The only news to discuss with that is that the firm is receiving applications. They are taking these applications and pretty much vented them through what the school board had written for a proposal. I don't know if it's a mission statement. I'm not sure what the right words are, but they go through that statement that the board approved against the applications, and then I believe it's December 8th. They will be meeting with the community of, I think, 8 or 9 community members that will go through those application process. They will then go through those, and then the board will get 6 to 7 applicants. I'm not sure how many they plan to bring to us, but I just want to let you guys know that is the next step in the superintendent search. Any questions? Okay. The next thing, I'm proud to say the facility project.
Actually, I did have a question, Norm. Sorry.
Sure.
I've read that in Concord, they've said they're going to retain their interim superintendent because there aren't people applying for the job. Is that not the case with us, or are we still getting a lot of applicants, quality applicants?
I don't know the number. I haven't received an update at the board level yet. I'm curious as much as you are. It's Steve Chamberlain's very hard to replace as I have not heard a number at all.
Okay. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. So the next thing is I wanted to talk a little bit about the facility project with the budget committee. I'm pleased to say the facility project has gone very well since we implemented it this year. You know, me and Steve are catching up today to discuss the project and where we started and where we are now. And you know, as I said in the opening minute, you know, we started this bond with a 115 promise to the town, and we're delivering it at 80 cents on the tax rate for the next 20 years, which is a huge savings, you know, on the scope of the project. You know, for 35 cents, if I'm doing the math correctly, maybe I'm not, yeah. And the update right now is that everything that the taxpayers had voted on for that has gone through. We have done new roofs, we have done multiple projects in the school where we continue to follow through with our promise. Recently, since the last meeting I've had with you guys, we're finishing up the roofs over at Maple Street December 1st. We have Harold Martin has new units going into the kindergarten section to help with circulation. The fire pump was being delivered at the Harold Martin by December 15th. And that's gonna be tightened up and finished by the end of December because we want to be able to utilize the grant from the state. That is so important. So we are gathering all our information for the project and really executing the grant for the project. We have had problems, you know, nothing severe, but one of the most problems we've had was some additional leaks at the high school. So when we bid out this project in the beginning, we bid out this project as a package. We didn't say, okay, we're going to go to one person and we're going to get a quote. This went out to multiple people, and these were considered adults. And one of the adults was, if they found some additional problems over at the high school, you know, regarding the roof, this is what it would be, and this is what we need to do. So about I'd say about 2 weeks ago, the building committee made a recommendation to the school board to approve $44,360 to repair some of additional leaks that were occurring over at the high school. You know, they tried a lot on BPS to prevent these leaks, but some of the architecture and some of the steel structure was just causing leaks. And one of my concerns before approving this is with the warranty. You know, I can't look you guys in the eye and say I do not want to have any leaks. It's important that we don't have that. And with us investing in these $44,360, it eliminates leaks. BPS warranties it for the next 20 years, and this will fix the leaks we have over at the high school. It's a necessity to get this taken care of. So that was pretty much our second adult for the project regarding the facility project that we approved as a board. Did anyone have any questions about that before I move on to the next adult, third adult? Okay. So the next one.
Excuse me for a second. I've got one other question, if I could, before we move on.
Yeah.
Does that same kind of warranty go for the other two schools?
BPS warranties their work. Yes.
Okay, so we got a 24-year warranty on leaks at all three schools.
So it'd be, I will confirm that with BPS that it's for all three schools, but I know for the high school, they have committed to 20 years on the roof. And to write it correctly, the current roof on the high school is over 20 years old. That same 20-year warranty exists for the rest of the project. The warranty in the roof and covers material and not labor, and is prorated. The older it is, the less the company will put towards it. So that was from BPS in our meeting, just to be 100% with you, Don.
Okay, so 24 years, you basically got nothing like, which is normal. I just thought it sounded too good.
Yeah, but that's their words that, because I asked it, 40,000 or so, 44,000 is a lot just to throw towards that. I want to make sure that when they leave and they're out, we're not having any leaks, because I just can't
Right.
have something like that.
Good, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So the next step, if you guys have been over at Harold Martin, you probably haven't. They are erecting the steel, and they are on the second floor now, and things are looking great over there. I'm pleased to say that construction has been following COVID procedure and really keeping everything safe over there. One of the things we had to approve last week in our last meeting on Monday, the construction meeting we have every week with BPS, HL Turner, Steve, and Michelle, we discussed the weekly project. And one of the additional adults that we had to discuss was about $14,935 for replacement of the intercom system at Harold Martin. This we needed to approve early because we have to get the wiring behind the walls before they can start forming them. So this adds a new hub into the building in which they're able to connect to each classroom for all classrooms. So this was a quote that was bidded out in the beginning of this project that was just not taken as the first one. There was multiple vendors that bid this out, and this was something that we needed to get in now because of longer lead time and before we continue moving with the structure over at Harold Martin, which I gotta say, if you have time to drive by, looks very good. And I just wanted to say one other thing. I gave you guys a monthly report from BPS. I asked Steve and I asked BPS to produce this summary, really to give you guys a snapshot of where this project is going, what we've done for some changes, what we've done for the scope of moving forward for every single school. And to me, I thought it was important to be able to share that schedule with the community, share this with the budget committee, and really give everyone a view of how excited this project is. I'm excited to see when the science lab starts getting worked on, because there's just so much excitement just in this project that I'm very happy to see this really go through properly, and the taxpayers getting what they asked for, and that's about the whole package. So if there's no questions about the building project, we have a monthly meeting where our next task will be to discuss adults, and that will be in probably December and January. We will look at where we are financially in the project between owner's contingency and determine what avenue we want to take in making a recommendation to the school board. But it's really important to know that fire suppression was an amazing adult for this district at the cost that we did. Getting a fourth classroom added on, and to really continue to follow through with the vision of what Steve and this district asked for, years ago, was great to see. I do encourage you guys to follow the updates. We try to do an update every week with photos to engage this community, because it's important that they're part of the process, and we're very open about it.
Thanks, Norm. Does anybody have any questions? Don, did you have a question about the buildings?
Just a couple of comments. I talked with Norm last 2 or 3 days ago. I looked at the presentation that the construction company had put in on their timeline, and it's just a fabulous presentation. I've never seen any project of this size so detailed out, where every single piece of it for the next year is shown on that schedule. You can really get a feel for how this thing comes together and why it costs so much to do it, because there's so much to do. The other comment is that, again, talking with Norm, it appears that the whole fire suppression system for the entire school is going to come in somewhere around $250,000. And that is a fabulous cost relative to what we were first originally told a year or so ago, that it might be well over $1 million. To pull that off and to get the state aid and to do that for less than $250,000 is just absolutely fabulous. And if you put that into the system, it'll probably end up being an all, but it's the first one on the list, and it's obviously going to happen because they've already probably got $150,000 into it already. So again, congratulations. That was such a monumental task to get accomplished. Thank you.
But thank you,
Yeah.
Don. And
Please go ahead, Ron.
no, thank you, Don. And I'm hoping for more reports like this, continuously updating the budget committee and the community, because we still have a long way to go on this project. And my goal is to be open with any issues that we have with the budget committee, with this community, with the budget committee and this community, because it's an exciting project and we have a long way to go. And I look forward to overseeing it. So the next thing I'd like to discuss a little bit with you is the finance committee. So over the last couple 2 months or so, we passed our budget with the town. Has been great. We've been able to implement that and so forth. We've been meeting on a regular basis in order to discuss how can we make this budget and presentation more informative to the community, to the budget committee, so people can understand our budget much better. And Rob, myself, Michelle, and Steve really spent a lot of bit of time sitting down, figuring out a way to present this to the community. So I do understand that you guys want to see an example of it. I will do my best to bring something because I do believe it's important to get your feedback. And that's where I lean on Tom, where he wants, and even the taxpayer, to be part of the process, understand the format, because if there's something that we can present that maybe helps people here understand things based on the short window, happy to do that if it's possible. But as of right now, the way that we have the budget process that has been worked with Rob, myself, Steve, and Michelle, is basically based on budget units. And it's basically going to be by building. And it's very similar to the format that the town has presented on Monday night. I sat through that 5-hour meeting, Ken, and because I wanted to get a real good feel for how the leadership presents their budgets to the town. And it was very similar to the format that we talked about in the finance committee meeting. So we would have, the grade level, Harold Martin, it'd be grade 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You'd have the proposed budget from 2021, 2022, comparing the last 2 or 3 years, you'd see the percentage of increase, and then you'd see the actual from what was previously spent in the previous year. So I don't want to call it line by line budget, but it feels that way. We're not having it be like you're going to see the cost of like pencils and staples, but you're going to see a cost structure for Harold Martin substitutes, Harold Martin art education, math education. You're going to be able to see previous years. You're going to see the increase, and you're going to see what's actually spent in the last couple in the previous year. So we plan on doing that for each location. So we plan on doing that for Harold Martin, Maple Street, and the high school. And essentially, it's going to be very similar to what the town did. I think the formats could be a little bit different. But as a board member, as a taxpayer, it is a step in the right direction for what this town has been asking for. And I do applaud Steve and Michelle and Rob for really listening to the taxpayers about trying to find some new format for that. The next thing that we plan on doing is, I guess the word, I want to be careful of the right word, is a pragmatic budget, and how that is going to be presented. And I want to make sure it's the right term for what I'm explaining is that you will have basically you'll be able to look at a sheet and you'll be able to see each location. So you'll be able to see Harold Martin, Maple Street, the high school, and you'll be able to see the expense for each specific location for each grade. Over at Maple Street in the high school for each class, you'll be able to see what has been allocated for each specific building. So it's a start. I have not seen it finalized. We discussed it in our couple of meetings ago, that it's something that's in the software that we can use, that we're working with, and Michelle and Steve are working around the clock to produce something new for this community, for this budget committee. And I'm pleased to say that once we are able to bring this new format and presentation to the budget committee, I really hope it's something that we could all say, hey, this is definitely different than what it's been in the past. So I ask for a little more patience, I guess. I just want to let you know that we're listening to you. We understand you guys are looking for a new format, and that we are working very hard to make it happen. Does anyone have any questions?
Norm, I have a question on the where I want to just talk about the programmatic budget for a moment.
Yes.
So we spent the better part of a year, I think, as a budget committee working with the school board to develop their first programmatic budget. I think it was last year, but I don't remember if it was 2 years ago now, but I think it was last year. And that was helpful. And one of the things I know we were all interested in was, on a going forward basis, looking at how numbers were changing year over year within the programmatic budget, because the idea is to see, we're always interested, what are the major drivers of changes in the budget, and and how do those shake out by the educational curriculum area and the buildings, as you said. So when you say that there's work being done on that, is it using the format that we were previously provided, or is this a new format in terms of the programmatic budget?
It's a good question. Mark, from what I recall, it was something that Michelle had to call in. I'm not 100% sure how we had to get it. I'm not sure if it was an update in the software or something like that, because it was a little tricky to take past data in there and to convert it, if I recall.
Right, but once they had to put it in place last year, I thought the idea was they had the reporting format and sort of in the program now, and so they were ideally going to be able to pull, recreate those reports going forward. Anyway, I'm just curious I just hope we're not inventing something new again, or if there are, then I would encourage whoever is doing that to come and talk with the budget committee to make sure that if they're doing something new and different, that they're actually doing something that will serve this committee and not just create something new and different.
Absolutely. And I can tell you right now, the document that we're doing that's a line by budget, that is something that is different for this committee. You
right,
guys
sure, no.
Yep. And then you'll have
talking about the programmatic budget part. I'm just talking about the programmatic budget.
Yeah, and I guess I want to make sure that I'm using the right term for that, because I'm not sure if it's the right accounting term for what we discussed in our meeting regarding each location, the fixed expense for for each section of, like, say, for the whole Department of Math, Science, and all that. It's going to be in a complete format for each location, but I will have a better picture of this for our next finance committee meeting, and I do encourage you guys to go to that if you have time. They're all recorded, all minutes are taken, and it's basically a working session for us. But if there is something drastic on that, Mark, Michelle will be with me for these presentations where she can help us. But I don't think there's anything alarming that would confuse the budget committee. I think it's more going to be a tool that's going to really help this budget committee to be able to see the changes and the driving factors in our budget.
Thank you. Great. Are there other questions for Norm on what he just shared around the budget development approaches or comments? Okay,
I'm sorry, there's a lot to report from the school district. It's more of this than the actual,
that's fine.
so, so one thing that was discussed in the, in our last finance committee was Steve and Michelle are talking about bringing a couple warrants to district meeting, to the school board first to finalize if we all agree to it. And I just wanted to have a discussion with you guys on what those potentially can be. And that's the key word, potentially, because it takes the majority of the board in order to have these warrants in place. And the first warrant is HB 1558. We agreed as a town that we would allow up to 2.15% to retain on the unreserved fund balance. As you know, legislation has changed that to 5%. So what would happen is the board agreed to a warrant. This would go to the town, allowing the board to save up to 5% in regards to HB 1558, up to 5%. So it gives the board the flexibility to go higher if they want to take some money and put it aside to help with the tax stabilization or whatever they need to do. But that is a warrant that Steve and Michelle, I believe, are planning on bringing to the board for discussion. The other warrant that potentially will be coming to the board, most likely will be the interest from the bond. We cannot spend money from the bond, the interest from the bond. The interest from the bond is projected to be between $5,000 and $10,000. $5,000 to $10,000 is enough to do some more flooring, potentially in some other locations of the school that might need it. But in order to use the interest on a bond project, we would have to get permission from this town in order to use it. If it's not agreed to, then it's my understanding the extra interest would go into the unreserved fund balance, which will be allocated later. But that's my understanding from what we had in our last meeting. The next warrant, again, if the board approves it or decides to move forward with it, I think is a unique one. It is the.
Hey Norm, could we ask?
Yeah.
Can I pause you on that last one?
Yeah.
I guess I'm maybe just a clarification.
Yep.
When you say the interest on the bond, I don't think I quite understand. We pay interest on our bonds, so where's the revenue there?
Oh, so we're accruing interest on the revenue that we received from the bond. So there is wherever it's in our savings at the bank is what I'm talking about.
Oh, I see. I mean, we drew the bond. It hasn't been spent yet. It's sitting there accruing interest.
Correct.
You need to warrant to have the ability to spend that to utilize that in whatever way the school board is proposing.
Correct. I apologize for not being clear on that.
Don't apologize.
No.
I just didn't make sure I understood. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And then the last possible warrant that would be potentially brought to the town potentially. Again, this is something Steve and Michelle discussed with Rob and I, and we haven't weighed in an opinion on it yet, is potentially creating a new technology capital reserve fund. You know, currently right now, you know, as you know, we have the maintenance trust, we have a planned CIP. It is a big hit for the district to invest in a substantial amount of technology, you know, for our students, especially since, you know, the way our students are learning is changing. Steve and Michelle are thinking about the possibility of developing some type of trust for technology that would result us budgeting amount of money set aside for technology for the district. They would all be held with a public hearing if we were to withdraw from them. But it's something that will help us that once the technology becomes obsolete or we need to have it to invest into something for the school districts, we have it there. Instead of instead of just taking $130,000 in a budget cycle saying we need to have this for this much product, we have a plan in which we say, okay, we know what we need for allocation for technology. If it's laptop, if it's this, it's a discussion for the board to have, but just wanted to bring it to the budget committee to let them know that it's something that's potentially that might be coming up.
Any questions for Norm on any of those potential warrant articles? Don, are you raising your hand?
Yes, just going back to the unreserved fund, changing it from 2.15 to 5%. Is that the Title 10 money, or is it, am I confused?
That is Article 10.
Okay, now is Title 10 money different than other types of unreserved fund at the end of the fiscal year? You end up with X amount of dollars that you didn't spend that was in the budget. Some of it is applied directly, as I understand it, to lowering the tax rate. Some could go into this Title 10 fund. Is the Title 10 fund the only fund that can be carried over from year to year, i.e. you put it in there to hopefully put it against the taxes in future years, where the others, you obviously are applying it directly to the current year's tax rate? Is that a correct assumption?
I'm looking at Michelle's invisible spreadsheet on top of my head right now. But I'm trying to word it correctly. It's my understanding on the unreserved fund balance that we receive at the end of the year, we can only allocate up to 2.15%, which would go towards the tax stabilization rate, which would be applied for the following. I can get you a more of a detailed explanation on that. I think that'd be the best to answer your question, Don. I can get you an answer on that, explaining that exactly.
Okay, I may not have clearly asked the question, but in my mind, there's the ability to apply current funds at the end of the year to lower this current year's tax rate that we're trying to budget. And then there would be a fund, the Title 10 fund money, which you could put also money into that, but that can be used for future years, not the current year. And again, I may have that not clear.
No, because I remember this year, what happened is that we had to make it on the last day of the budget cycle, June 30th. We have to make a decision on what we're doing with the fund that's allocated, that's left over. This year, we decided to spend some on technology that we had. So that filled a hole in the budget for 2020, 2021, because we were able to use that that technology purchase. And then we maxed out Article 10 at 2.5%. And then I don't know the rest of the equation in my head, Don. I'm really sorry, but I know we did something else. We applied something to the tax rate to lower it also. But I will get that analogy for you corrected, so we are all on the same page.
Hopefully these are some of the kinds of things that will be defined in your famous glossary that we're waiting for.
I know.
Examples of how the money goes in, how it gets out. For each one of these terms that we use constantly, that gets confusing to me. Thank you.
No, you're so welcome. And I will definitely get that information for you. But we are working on that glossary. I've asked Rob to work with that on me. So.
Very good. Any other questions or comments for Norm on the warrant articles, potential warrant articles? All right, Norm, do you have other updates, or do you want to keep, or you have other updates, or you can transition to financial?
This kind of goes under financial a little bit, Mark. So I think this is kind of important to share. So tomorrow we have a public hearing to discuss receiving the CARES Act money and the supplemental public school response fund, which is $200 per student, which is up to $191,000. So tomorrow the board would be holding a public hearing on whether or not to accept that. And I'm sure there's not gonna be any issue in this town to accept close to $200 over $200,000. What's unique about this this act is two things. We have to use this money by December 30th. They don't let us carry it over until 2021. We have to use it by December 31st or December 30th. So Michelle, she covers everything. She's able to take these grants and then retroactive it to every expense that's been towards COVID for the whole year since this started. And she'll present tomorrow a report of every single item that's covered under COVID that will be able to be applied to this grant. All of it will be spent. We're rescinding on an action item. It was for circulation over in the pre-K room, in which we're going to apply that $46,000 to this grant instead of it coming out of, I believe it was the maintenance trust that we had a public hearing on. So we are taking these funds, which we know we have to use by December 30th. And Michelle has taken every expense from masks, from library safety shields, everything, and it's allocated towards this grant that we're going to be getting from the state. So tomorrow at 5 p.m., we're holding a Zoom meeting to discuss the public hearing. I don't foresee anyone in Hopkinton having an issue with us accepting over $200,000, but it will be a presentation from Michelle, and she'll explain what she's using it for and how we got there with close to over $200,000 from the state. So that's good news, and I guess I'll transition to the financials I sent you. There's really the only activity really on there is we received a substantial amount more than last year of total income from the town, and we purchased some more PPE, which again came out of the Campbell financials. Again, I'm assuming that this $20,000 that we have purchased will be part of the grant that we will receive from the state. So we can't use this grant money on something that we want to implement for January. One of the questions was, can you use this grant money for technology? That is part of COVID, yes, if we're teaching kids, but we cannot give a firm date of it being installed, working by December 30th. The lead times for this technology has been substantially long, as you know, due to COVID, but Michelle and Steve and the district have gone back and found over $200,000 worth of COVID expenses that we will receive back. So I'm here to answer any questions. If I don't know it, I'll definitely get the answers for you.
Norm, I have it's kind of a macro level question. It's not about the specific financials. Did you have more to go through? I can wait, or I can ask it now.
Nope, you're good to ask any question, you know.
I think it might, and I don't ask us to put you on the spot tonight, so you're welcome to, talk this over with Steve and the school board if you want to give it some more thought. But we had took us 3 tries to get a budget passed for the school this year. There were a lot of hard choices that were ultimately made by the school board. There was a lot of conversation along the way about what the impacts and implications of the reductions in the proposed budget. I say that carefully because I know the overall budget wasn't reduced, but the reductions from the original and second draft proposed budgets. And I think it might be helpful to just be able to get a sense of, look, you're a few months into the school district, how is the budget serving the school? and the students. You know, have there been has the school been able to absorb the change and the changes that were essentially asked for and approved by the taxpayers? Have there been some unexpected, either expected or unexpected, detrimental impacts in terms of whether it's teacher-student ratios or whatever it may be on the curriculum? I think that might be helpful for us to understand as we head into this budget year and we think about, you know, our own willingness and the community's willingness to absorb whatever the proposed budget adjustments might be for next year. Is really understanding what have we learned from this year when the ultimate budget was quite a bit different than the original one put forth by the school board. So it's a pretty broad and open question, and again, I don't expect you to answer it tonight, but I feel like it could be important for us to understand what's being learned around those impacts and implications as we go into this coming budget year.
It's a great question, Mark, and I'm happy to bring that to back to the board and get a response. I think it's a very, very valid question. Important.
Anything else for Norm? Don?
I guess just one other question. Is there any kind of an update on what the negotiations for the teachers' contract is going?
No, Mr. Houston, I do not have an update for that. I do know they're negotiating.
Yeah, that's it's a big issue again, for sure. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Anything else for Norm?
Thank you all for being very patient with me. I know I have a lot of information to share, but thank you all for bearing with me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Norm, for covering all that important ground. We appreciate it. We appreciate you. Don, I'm going to turn over to you for an update on the Kentucky precinct financials.
Okay. First thing I'd like to mention is just Jonathan asked a question on does the precinct offer fluoride treatment, and it does not. I don't know if you have any more questions that you might have that I might answer to that, but it is not part of the system at this point. Okay, moving along, as I say, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow to develop this year's budget. There's basically no new news on the current budget. Everything is sort of going along as expected and budgeted. We do have a contractor picked for doing the replacement of the water pipe up on Main Street, which is in Linda Kimball's field. That work could start this week, next week, or very soon. Obviously, the ground's going to be freezing up soon. Hopefully, we can get it in this year, but the contract with Linda allows us 2 more years to get it done, but they're sure going to try to get it done this year. I think that's the only update that I have on the precinct. Any questions?
Norm, did you have a question? Or are you just stretching?
I spilled some soda.
Anybody have any questions for Don? Okay, Don, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thomas, Hopkinton Village Precinct update.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, we're probably going to start, or we're going to start our budgeting process tomorrow at our meeting. We don't expect anything to really change from previous years, which is good. One thing to note though is that the 2020 tax rates have been set, and if you look at the actual rates, the percent increase in the Hopkins precinct is by far the largest, but the actual amount that's been increased is much, much smaller than that. So it's noted on the tax rate increase, it's been a 5-point-something% increase in the tax rate, which for us is only actually 2 cents, so it's not too bad. But the actual budget has only increased about 0.5% year over year. So the difference is coming from an unreserved, a reserve fund balance that comes in, and it's kind of it's kind of unique how the precinct uses that budget to kind of stabilize like lawyer fees or maintenance that happens once every 10 or so years. But the actual budget change is much, much smaller. So if anyone asks about it, that's why.
Thanks, Thomas.
But yeah,
Questions or comments for Mr. Lupoma? All right. We have gotten to the public comment section of our meeting, and so I am going to flip over to my attendees list. We've got a few. So if you are calling in or zooming in and you're a member of the public and you want to ask a question or share a comment, please raise your hand. You do that by clicking participants, I believe, and clicking raise your hand in there. And I'll try to leave this open for a minute. I don't see any hands raised yet, but I want to make sure people have an opportunity to do that. We also have a Q&A button that you can enter your question in or comment in the Q&A chat. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. So with that in mind, I'm going to close the public comment session. And I am going to come back to the panelists or to the committee, and our final agenda item is any other business to come before the board. I have one item to share. Right now, we do not have all the individual committee members' emails, personal emails linked to the Budget Committee webpage. And I think we had talked about that previously. That's the norm. I actually went on a whole bunch of other comparably sized towns' Budget Committee web pages just to see if what people did. But we did have a request from a community member who asked for the email of a particular Budget Committee member. And so what I did was work with Neil and Deb at the town to set up an email for me as the chair. It's a town email account, so it doesn't come to my personal email. And so that way, any member of the public who wants to communicate with the Budget Committee, either an individual member or with the Budget Committee as a whole in between meetings, can send an email. We can use that if we want to. I can share that at Budget Committee meetings, or maybe it'll be helpful in setting agendas. That email is now up on the Hopkinton Budget Committee website, and you can click through under my name on the Hopkinton Budget Committee website. So just another opportunity for members of the public to communicate with us. And if anything comes into that that's directed at a particular Budget Committee member, I will forward it over to you.
Mark, do you want us to continue emailing you to your main email account, or using that one if we have any information we need to send you?
I think that's a good question. I hadn't really anticipated that. Well, yeah, why don't you, for now, Norm, let's just continue as committee members. You can use my personal email, but I might end up transitioning over. So let me think about that. Just got this set up today, so hadn't gotten that far. Good question. Is there any other business that people want to raise today? Not seeing any, then I will ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Who was that? Was that Ken?
Yes, I've moved it.
Okay, and Lauren,
second.
did you second it?
Yep.
Rich seconded it, okay. I'll do a quick roll call vote here. Janet? Gotta take you off mute.
Can we do it by hands?
I can see you all, so yes, let's do. And everybody, all in favor, raise your hand, and I will share that with Tammy. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so Tammy, unanimous vote in support of adjourning. Thank you all very much. I hope that you have, Norm, are you raising your hand to say something?
No, say goodbye and stay safe, everybody.
Oh, okay. Yes, I hope you all have a restful and wonderful Thanksgiving. We'll see you on December 9th. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Stay warm.
Yes.